Which tourist attractions are overrated? Hollywood, a haven for hustlers, homeless and drug addicts. Plus the place is seemingly on its last legs. I was so underwhelmed, like I should have just kept the illusion of it in my mind. Hollywood is kind of like that girl from high school that was super pretty and popular when you were younger. Everyone had a crush on her and she was the talk of the town. But the years have not been good to her, and she's on Facebook trying to convince people she knew from back then to loan her money. The Walk of Fame is a shithole. I lasted 2 blocks. The Mona Lisa is overrated. The Louvre is not. Times Square, seeing it in TV and movies made it look like some majestic place. When I went there, it's just construction and honking. That's just NYC in general. I lived in Manhattan for a decade. No one who lives in NYC goes anywhere near Times Square. Ever. Husavik, Iceland. They don't play Ya Ya Ding Dong nearly often as I thought they would. Also, the elves are kind of violent. Like way more violent than you'd expect. Motherfucking Plymouth Rock. It's a rock and we don't even know if the pilgrims even landed on it. Most likely it's actually a fake story to create a tourist attraction. London. I'm from a Londoner. The views aren't great compared to other places which I will mention. Plus London doesn't have a great skyline anyway, so it's just money down the drain. You can go to a bar called the Sky Garden, which has way better views of London, and you can also drink and chill while there. It's really popular though, so if you wanna go you will have to book in advance. Edit. The Shard is also good. The cable car by Greenwich is really good. Gives you great views of the Thames and Canary Wharf. Arguably better than central London's skyline. Voodoo Donuts in Portland, and now plenty of other cities. They're not that great and mostly became famous because they did funny designs like the cock and balls. It began as a money laundering operation. Originally was cash only open from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. and at any time you could buy a $5 bucket of day-old donuts. Never really was that busy but had incredible sales. That accidentally lucked into becoming huge. No donut is worth waiting more than 5 minutes in line. There's no way to convince me that their donuts are that good. Niagara Falls. The actual falls are beautiful, but the rest of the city cheap, gimmicky garbage. On the Canadian side it's not so bad. Still quite touristy. However, I don't want to dissuade people from seeing Niagara Falls itself, even knowing how touristy it was. The sheer power of seeing such a large waterfall was really amazing. If you want something else to do, rent a car and head to Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's a great little town with wineries and a great lakefront to hang around. The Tower of Sauron in New Zealand, it's not even in one piece anymore. Well yeah, it fell over when Frodo destroyed the ring. This guy loaders. Mount Rushmore. I like all the stuff around it, but that was boring. Most of South Dakota is beautiful without us carving faces into it. Western SD has some interesting places like the Badlands and Black Hills, but the rest of the state is mostly boring agriculture. The Empire State Building. Waiting in huge lines to go to the top of a building that's not even the tallest building in the city anymore. On top of that, if you want a full view of the NYC skyline, it feels empty without actually seeing the Empire State Building. I think Top of the Rock is a better alternative. From what I've been told, Top of the Rock by day, Empire State Building at night. The gum wall in Seattle is fucking disgusting. I remember seeing a video of a young woman who licked it from one end to the other on a dare. Las Vegas. It's super hot and the entire city is basically set up to monetize you, the visitor. And not in a pay come have a good time and spend some money kind of way, but rather a fuck you, give us money way. I mean, you go there to gamble. Gambling is built off of fuck you, give us money. It's more than that. Having to pay to use a deck chair by the pool is a pretty big fuck you. Also, I ordered an orange juice at one of the casino bars and paid $11 for a small glass of frozen concentrate OJ. at the Luxor, which by the way broken rattling elevators and rooms with marginal AC. I have plenty of money to spend when on vacation and I am happy to do it, but not when I feel like it's just a big attempt to extort it from me. I'll go to literally any of the casinos around where I live and get better treatment. Disney World. Pay hundreds of dollars per person to wander around an area designed for you to get lost in 90-degree Florida heat, and then stand in 3 hours of lines to experience 90 seconds of a thrill. Eat food you can get at multiple places in your hometown for cheaper, and buy souvenirs at 400% markup. Then go swim in a pool where hundreds, if not thousands of kids have most definitely peed in within the last month. Fun for the whole family. Indeed, you can make the experience much better by going in September or February. There's hardly anyone in the parks then, so lines are short. As a family of 4, we were able to comfortably see everything in an entire park in a single day. Temperatures are milder in September and downright pleasant in February, even a bit chilly in the morning. This doesn't address the quality of the food, and it won't stop an orange juice pop from freezing to one's lips if one stupidly pops it straight into the mouth from the vendor's freezer. But it does ease much of the pain of going in the summer. The Mona Lisa. It's small, the room was packed, and it's behind a massive pane of security glass. Yeah, on the other hand, I was not expecting the Venus de Milo to be so huge. It's a blessing. It's sacrifice to keep the lower stratum of tourists away from the rest of the art. LA in general is really not that great. It takes 30 minutes to drive anywhere, and famous people don't roam the streets like some seem to think. Greater than it takes 30 minutes to drive anywhere within 10 miles and 2 hours if it's more than 10 miles. When I moved to California from the Midwest 5 years ago, I would always ask people how far away something was, and they would tell me how many minutes away it was. It was probably one of the funniest culture shock moments because I didn't understand it for the first few months. Now I tell distance in minutes and my parents are like, no, but how many miles is it? Quote, miles mean nothing here. IDK. That's super common everywhere I've ever been in my life. Maybe it's just generally a city thing. Yeah, I've always said it in the 3 cities where I've lived. It's way easier to envision than miles. The Little Mermaid in Copenhagen. It is small and there is nothing else nearby greater than the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen. It is small, exactly as advertised. You should have gone to the Enormous Mermaid. I got lost and went to the Average Mermaid. Stonehenge if you think you're going to see some monumental structure. If you're going for the mystical, spiritual aspect, then you'll find it cool. So take drugs there. Got it. That's a good tip for pretty much all of these destinations. Yup. Avebury, 25 kilometers north, is a much better bet. Less tourists and you can walk around amongst the stones. These is 1 or 2 other ancient sites in that area to look at as well. Wall Drug, SD. I know it's cheesy, but after an 8-hour car ride through the middle of nowhere, I welcome it in all its ridiculousness. Nashville. It's a 5-block strip of bars that are literally all just the same bar. If you want the same experience at home, just play out of tune pop country so loud you can't hear anything and pay $6 for your Bud Light. I wonder if people on Reddit realize the reason most people go out isn't for affordable drinks. It's for socializing. Drinking by yourself at home is cheaper literally everywhere in the world. Reddit is 80% white male that works in tech. You think they socialize in person? LMAO. Isn't it the bachelorette party capital of the country though? It's also the Sweet Caroline cover capital of the world. You've never been to Fenway Park, have you? Or Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans? Sweet Caroline on the quarter hour, almost like clockwork. Times Square. After the initial, I saw this in a movie once moment, you realize it's too crowded, filled with weird people in costumes selling photos, and all there really is to do is go look at the chain stores. Samui Island, Thailand. And also all the other overrated islands with those so-called full moon parties. Also Pattaya as well. As a Thai, I'll never get why those places are so popular. Lots of suspicious stuff happen there lol. Don't want to boast my own hometown, but Phuket is way better. Well, still not really that good, but at least there are things to do besides beaches. The Tower of Pisa. It's just this crude white building, and after half a minute you're like, okay, what's next? The cathedral and baptistry are amazing though, especially if you are there when a docent is singing. The baptistry has such a long echo that they can harmonize with themselves into 4 or 5 note chords. Pisa, not pizza. Chisa, Miami. I live here and it's just humid and has a few tourist attractions. Not the paradise it sought out to be. Yeah, it's kinda weird going on city tours there because there's so little. It's like this was a farming area and then party-goers and retirees started coming to the beach, so now there's many condo buildings. Plus we have great Cuban food. Quote. How the fuck is Miami a tourist destination and who thinks it's a paradise? IDK. Tourism is the biggest business here though, and when I lived in other places, quite a lot of people were going there. Dublin. Go to a different, much safer and cheaper city in Ireland. Dublin's pub scene is top-notch and nothing you can say can change my mind. For sure, but you're paying twice as much for a pint. It's still a good night out though. London Eye. It's not even a real eye. Madame Tussauds Wax Museums walked out feeling like a fucking idiot for spending $40 to look at some big-ass dolls. Anything New Year related, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Then again, if you like waiting 4 to 6 hours outside in the cold for 4 to 6 minutes of fireworks while surrounded by drunk strangers, then it might be enjoyable. I would say since OG Temple in Tokyo, it is so extremely busy that it's hard to enjoy, and the market just sells the same souvenirs that can be bought at a tax-free shop. It is much more worthwhile to see the temples and shrines in Nikko or Hakone. Greater than since OG. It was nice the first time I went and it just opened for the day. The second time was midday and I hated it. After 3 days in Kyoto, since OG didn't compare at all. Still, Kapabashi is nearby and my wife loved all the dishware and stuff. Maneki pies in Brussels. It's not even on a main square, but somewhere tucked away. It is nice when he's dressed up for special occasions, but mostly it's just a small statue, like 40 centimeters tall, of a little boy peeing. Sangria. Nobody in Spain but teenagers, because it's very cheap and easy to drink. Drinks that shit. It gives you horrible hangovers. In a country like Spain where you can buy a bottle of excellent wine for €6. I can't get why tourists are so hyped by it, assuming it's well mixed and not overly sweet. Sangria on ice really hits the spot on hot and humid days, and you can comfortably drink more of it than a regular glass of wine. Well, it's hard to find a place that does homemade sangria. The few they still do it, it's just non-drinkable wine mixed with stuff that hides the original taste. That's the origin of sangria. Because, well, you just don't use El Rober wine to make sangria. Touristic places sell commercial sangria full of additives and sugar. For the purpose you said, it'll have homemade vermouth, or tinto de verano. I don't really enjoy wine, but sangria I do. Sangria is awesome. I like wine, but there is definitely a time and place for sangria. The best I had was at a paella restaurant in Barcelona. The Moulin Rouge Cabaret. You walk in expecting the most beautiful women in the world, and an incomparable show up, and if I remember correctly, showgirls come in and out and do their thing. They have 3 really beautiful women who sing live throughout the show. There's a dude that juggles different items. There's a puppeteer that speaks different languages. There are some magic presentations. There is a couple that does strength acrobatics. Don't get me wrong, it's a good show, but it's definitely overrated and overhyped AF. You need to be high on original absinthe. The Four Corners Monument. Last time I went it just smelled of porta potties and you had to pay to go in. Which then there was places to pay to eat, buy tourist merch, and not much else to do besides say you were in 4 states at once. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.